Geeks Assembled.
Hi, Geeks Assembled. It's Chase Masterson from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Live long and prosper. And thanks for supporting the Pop Culture Hero Coalition. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and at our website, popcultureherocoalition.org. We're standing against bullying, and we'd appreciate your support.
Hello and welcome to Geeks Assembled, and today we are going to be discussing a Star Trek episode from the original series from 1967, which back then I don't think they knew would be a prequel to one of the Star Trek movies. We are talking Space Seed, which introduced the character Khan. So we will go around our little group here with opening thoughts. Beef Dad, let's have your opening thoughts on this episode.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it. It's pretty good. Khan himself is great. Ricardo Montalban's just brilliant at Khan. The whole concept of basically a genetically modified bunch of people who are basically supermen, and they are, well, they've already taken over a Federation starship, the Botany Bay, and yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, and the ending, I like the ending where they're basically they don't kill them all off, which was, I'm not sure whether that was a mistake or not. And of course, they dump them down on a planet that's basically uninhabited, so they have the chance to grow themselves a civilization, because it's not just men, it's women as well. So you got a bunch of superhuman Adam and Eves on a planet. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I quite like the idea of that.
Yes, you paint a pretty picture. Stephen Price, what's your opening thoughts on Space Seed?
Well, I looked it up after I watched the episode yesterday. When it first aired, it had estimated amount of 12 million viewers. Yeah, I enjoyed the episode. I do like the actor. Don't ask me his name, who played Khan. I can't pronounce his name. Yeah, I enjoyed the episode, and it was good how they, it's like a prequel to the Wrath of Khan. And they were going to go over budget on it, but it was far too expensive. I really enjoyed this episode.
So another satisfied viewer. Let's go to the love sofa. Over to Susan and Alex.
Thank you, Lee. I must say I love this. I love this episode. I really enjoy Ricardo Montalban. I really enjoy the lady who plays MacGyver's the historian, who Kirk is like, oh my gosh, finally, let's get her doing something other than, just doing art or whatever. he was sort of begrudgingly offering her a place to do her work as a historian. Here's a historical figure of some repute, one of these great, amazing people, product of late 20th century genetic engineering. Much as, the people sitting here on the sofa tonight are amazing. Just kidding. So yeah, it was super fun, and I really loved I loved how she she was eventually brought back into sort of alignment with rational thinking, but I don't like how Khan and his people just used force and abuse to change the minds of these women, and these other men around didn't like that too much at all. But that was the 60s, and but anyway, it was a great episode. It had lots of drama, lots of twists and turns, and a great cast. Here's Alex.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen many different versions of this episode. I guess as the time has gone on, they've changed it and added the special effects. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of. I mean, he is a good supervillain. It would have been nice to have seen him more in action than just abusive. I mean, he was abusive toward MacGyver and basically got away with it. And she sort of played both the hero and the villain, which I guess is good. Of course, it's not covered in the sequel what happened to her, sort of. She still shouldn't have had the uniform on because, in a way, she was sentenced to exile instead of court-martial, which is what you would have gotten for helping him. And it is ironic that, of course, Kirk gave him all the tech manuals so that he could take over the ship. Spock, of course, didn't have a lot to do until the denouement. And, of course, in the sequel, we don't know what happened to Chekhov and Sulu because they seem to know Khan, even though they weren't in the episode. So I don't know if the Banks or Kirk was, telling them what was going on. But I think Khan would have been a more effective character if they had even tried for even 10 minutes to give him something else to do beside revenge. And it seems like that's pretty much what his character is. And I understand that he's, a quote-unquote superhuman, and he wants to be a dictator. So, of course, he is going to try to control people. But the thing is, even dictators have to have a history, and they really didn't do it. They had a backstory, they had exposition, but it would have been better in both stories if they had shown a little bit of something that he could do beside being revengeful. Of course, he is such a good actor that even when he's twirling the mustache, so to speak, it's not as hammy as other actors. But yeah, I mean, it's a good episode. There's episodes that I like more. But of course, it's basically cowboy versus cowboy, even though in the TV version that isn't big until they get to the fight. And if it wasn't for Spock, Sulu, and Bones, I wouldn't have been a fan of Star Trek. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not wearing any sort of uniform, because I know where my team lies, and I'm with BBC, and I'm with Doctor Who and Blake Seven and all that. So it's okay, but it's not, it's not the. I'd rather be watching The Twilight Zone if I'm going to be watching an American series. But I have seen a lot of Star Trek because they did have good writers as well.
Well, We know which side you would be for, Alex. You'd be wearing the red top. You'd go down to the planet, and you'd get phased straight away. Right, we'll move over to Kevin now. Kevin, what did you think of Spacey?
Well, this was lucky for me that it was on Netflix, so I could watch it because I couldn't watch the movie. So yeah, this was the first time that I watched a Star Trek episode. So I only seen the new movies from J.J. Abrams and the China guy, and yeah, I really liked it. I thought it, because the movie pacing I was used to in Star Trek, but it was almost the exact same pacing as the TV episode that I watched. So yeah, calm, interesting character. Already saw him in Into the Darkness. Spoiler alert. But yeah, it's a very interesting character. He's manipulative and abusive against the MacGyver character. Because I found it weird when they were kissing and she was like, oh yeah, let's do it. But yeah, I really freaking hate Khan, but he's a great villain. And yeah, it's funny that this was 1967. So yeah, and it was in color, so hey, that's a surprise. But yeah, I really like this episode, and yeah, like Susan said, actually, she wouldn't have the uniform, when she was being exiled, But hey, it's a welcome gift. Like, hey, bye bye. So yeah, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
See, Kevin jumps the gun with his scoring again. Well, we'll skip over that anyway. See, this episode, I like this episode because it's made in the 60s. It's sort of predicting what science fiction of the 23rd century they're thinking it'll be like, but it's also predicting 30 years into the future from the 60s for the 1990s as well. And it's totally different to what it was. It's Ricardo Montalban as Khan, brilliant character. I guess he never thought he'd return again in the 80s as the same character. But it's well paced. It's as you say, he's abusive. He is abusive. As you say, dictator, abusive. But but she's the one who falls for him. He seduces her, and she falls for him. Really, head over heels for him. It's, as you say, Spock's got not a lot to do in this, as you say, until the end. It is mainly Khan, and I think that works well just for this episode. Kirk and Khan, loggerheads, and it's, as Kevin said, he's used to the movie pace, but he thought this episode was well paced for, what was it, 45 minutes long? Yes, Alex?
Well, actually, Bones did have some great lines. I mean, if you're going to cut my neck, do it, or whatever,
Yeah, that was
he didn't seem too scared.
You've just pinched one of the scenes I was just going to point out. Damn. Well, on that note, then we'll stay with you two. Any favourite scenes or things you could have just been rid of?
Yeah, I mean, again, we saw sort of a remastered version, and I guess the animated, I shouldn't say animated, the suspended animation pods were different. They didn't really cover almost any of his followers, even though a lot of the women did have 1960s haircuts. I know, and kind of chain bikinis. Of course, everything comes back in fashion almost, but it was kind of interesting too, how Khan sort of pulled the, I have a headache, but he was still confronting Kirk. As I said, Scotty was kind of interesting, especially that scene where they're at the table and they are talking about how they sort of have an admiration, even though they don't. But I mean, I don't know if that's sort of a little bit of a morality play that just because you have dictators in the world, they can do some good things too, but that's not the reason to admire them. Mussolini, Hitler, other dictators, that they can get a lot of things done that the regular people might take 20 years or 30 years to do. But again, since we don't know his history really, it's just exposition. And we don't see in the sequel either, how he lived before they found him again. We don't know if it's just talk or if he really was able to control anything. I know there's books. If you want to read the Star Trek books, I read a lot in the 70s just to see what it was like. And I do like the animated series of Star Trek. So in a way, that's a continuation. But I can't recall if they mentioned Khan or any of the other villains. They brought back Mudd and they brought back a few other people in the animated show, but I can't remember if they mentioned Khan or not. But yeah, there was a few scenes that I liked. I would have changed just a little bit. I did not like how Khan was hitting, MacGyvers and all that. But then again, it could have been a plot device as well. But it just wasn't enjoyable to watch that part. But it was enjoyable, toward the end. And it was enjoyable with the fight in the engineering room, which you don't get to see a lot of throughout the show.
I guess my favorite part is where he sort of turns off the environmental controls and stuff, and he's gonna doom the rest of the people on the ship, and then they try and gas him and stuff, and that doesn't really work either. So those sorts of action moments were fun, and yeah.
Thanks for that, you two. We'll go to Beef Dad. Any things you didn't like or things you did like? Scenes? Characters?
The thing I always loved about Star Trek was the banter, especially the banter between Spock and Kirk. I mean, there's a classic one in this where Spock says, "I don't understand why." It always makes you happy, gives you pleasure to see me wrong. And sort of, he just sort of looks at him and smiles and says, "It's a sort of emotional earth weakness of mine." It's just the banter, and also you always had banter between Bones and Kirk. I always used to look forward to those moments where they would be standing and having a conversation, because I knew that I was going to enjoy it and it was funny. It was very, very well written. Apparently he was the last, Khan was the last dictator on Earth. I believe when they were all sitting around talking, Scotty said that he had admired him, and yet it's funny that he never recognized him when they found him on the ship. And I quite enjoyed the idea of the suspended animation. It was done. It was done well. And the Botany Bay was a shit from supposedly from the 1990s. Yeah, if only. But yeah, it's just the banter. I always enjoy the banter in the Star Trek episodes.
I've got to agree, maybe the banter is the best between Spock, Bones, and Kirk. Those three, any episode you can watch, the banter makes the episode. We'll move on to Stephen Price. Anything you liked or disliked?
I like the acting of the actor who played Khan. Lost my
Who would that be, Mr. Price?
I can't remember his name. Forgot his name.
Ricardo Montalban.
Brilliant performance. His physique, he's like, muscle. I don't think he would look like that in the Wrath of Khan. I think it would have been saggy towards the 1982. Overall, I enjoyed the episode. My favourite bit was where he put a knife to McCoy's throat. He says, "Go on, like, do it," cut the bear. I really enjoyed that. To me, 10 out of 10. Classic episode.
Thanking you, Stephen. Kevin, any favourite bits of things you weren't so keen on?
Oh, well, I didn't like, when Khan actually throw MacGyver. Like, that's really... It was like, I think in the 60s, when the writers were writing this, they saw women as objects more, than... Because it really looks like that when when Khan was like, no, I do what I want, and I so he was like, yeah, well, if you're not going with me, then
Well, I suppose they wrote it as a sort of to get the viewers to be shocked at what was going on. Yeah. The shock value of he treated the guy. And it worked.
Yeah.
It worked because people were taken aback by it and said, oh, hold on. And that was the character of Khan.
Abusive mother. Yeah,
I mean, it was well written, and it was written that way to show him what a
prick he is.
Big piece of scum he is, really.
Rebel.
Yeah, Uhura was hit, but maybe not a lot, not as much. But yeah, it was his second in command, right? But like this anyway. It was
it was the 60s.
A bit brutal.
Well, it's brutal. It was a violence of dictatorship, and that's what they were trying to show, I think.
Donald Trump.
But for me, there's one bit I thought they could have done a little better is when he told, he was seducing MacGyver's in the med bay, and he told her to wear her hair down. I'm thinking, you only took 2 strands down. It was a bit straggly. You could have let her all her hair down. Wear it like that. And I think, what, with 2 strands sticking out here? But yeah, I did like the way that from the beginning he was seducing her right from the beginning. You could see what he was doing straight away.
Yeah. 2 locks. He looked more beautiful than ever. Only 2 locks.
And as I say, he was willing to accept her to come with him to the planet as well, and she did. Good on her, she could have had a court martial, but she went with him. So, and we found out later in the sequel she became his wife. But yeah, all in all, it's a good, solid Star Trek episode from the first season. And I know people will say Sulu and Chekhov were in this episode, but I mean,
Maybe they were in a different part of the ship, okay?
Well, yeah, Chekhov didn't start till season 2 anyway. But
the year 2018 was mentioned in the episode, you know.
Yeah, and 1996. Well, I don't remember.
1993 was it?
But yeah, solid. The genetic wars from 93 to 96 or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just brilliant episode, brilliant banter, and it's a brilliant character in Khan. Love him or loathe him, but that's how Khan was. Any more tidbits from anybody before we go to final say? Hold up your Vulcan. I can't even do it.
No, did you know that Scotty actually died on the same day that Apollo 11 landed on the moon?
Well, there you go.
Mm. And he didn't like
I'll
Bill
remember
Shatner.
that one now.
He did not like Bill Shatner.
There's a lot of actors
He liked the character of Captain Kirk, but he didn't like Bill Shatner.
They had William Shatner hadn't come around to, the sort of camaraderie that he has with all the other Star Trek people. He hadn't gotten there yet, but he's gotten there now. I mean, he's a different human being than he was 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
I mean, we also don't know as well. I mean, it's funny. You can see some of this on YouTube where what's her name? Nichelle Nichols was talking about, she had to be in black exploitation flicks because she was trying to get work. It wasn't that she wanted necessarily to do that firsthand. It was to keep working after Star Trek. Because remember that it was only around for 3 seasons, and the 3rd season wasn't great stories, and then it got canceled. And then they didn't realize part of what we're going to review next is because they didn't want to do another TV show, so they changed over to movies. So, I've heard different things about Scotty in real life, that he was a chauvinist or whatever, but he might have been. I mean, that's the other thing. Reality versus fiction. Just because you play a futuristic character on a TV show doesn't mean you're going to be that in real life either.
But you've also got to remember Star Trek was breaking the rules back then as well. Because, for one of them, it was not this episode, but another episode was the first on-screen TV kiss between a black woman and a white guy. Uhura and Kirk. They were breaking the walls and changing the TV for her, and good on them. So we've had the score off Kevin. You said, what did you say it was, Kevin?
8 out of 10.
Rightio, and we had a 10 off Stephen Price. So it's just the final guys here then. The 2 on the sofa, Alex and Susan, what's your scores then?
Mine is 10 Vulcan salutes out of 10.
You know I can't do that. I'm going to give.
I know, but I'm waiting to see what you use for your 10 or whatever you're scoring. But anyway, here's Alex.
Yeah, I'd have to say it's a 9. As I said, I haven't read a Star Trek book in a while in terms of the episode guide, so I'm not quite sure. I can barely remember what I read from there. I guess I need a refresher course. But yeah, I mean, like I said, even though I'm not a fan of Star Trek, I'm a fan of Bones and and Spock and Sulu and Scotty. And, of course, Leonard Nimoy passed away, 2 or 3 years ago? And he was from here. He was from Massachusetts. And also that salute is actually Jewish. That's a Jewish benediction sign, actually. Which it does mean basically live long and prosper for all practical purposes. But yeah, I will have to give it a 9. There are better Star Trek episodes, but this is still pretty good.
Thank you, you two, and let's move over to Beef Dad. Let's see what he has to say.
I enjoyed this one. I will say there were many others that were better. The one that sticks in my mind and always has done is The Trouble with Tribbles. And Mud's Women. It was good. It was a good concept, and it was a perfect one to set it up for a sequel. And yeah, so it gets a 9 out of 10 from me.
9 out of 10 for Beef Dad. For me, yeah, I agree with everything everybody else has said here, because we're quite an agreeable group 90% of the time. It's just that 10%. He's on holiday. I'm going to give it an 8.5. I agree with Alex. There are better episodes out there, but for Khan, for me, is just a brilliant character creation for the Star Trek universe. Brilliant, and it was brilliant that they brought it back in the movie. So yeah, it's a point from me. So I would just like to say thank you, Kevin, for being here. Thank you, Beef Dad. Pleasure as always. Thank you, Alex and Susan, for taking your time out from doing things other than things on that sofa.
Please, hush.
Hush, hush. Yeah, and thank you, Stephen Price, for not turning your camera on again, because we don't like to.
Camera's not working. My camera's not working.
We know. I'm pulling your leg. And I would just like to thank people for watching the videos. Please subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs down. Up or down. Leave a comment if you want. Tell us what you thought of this episode and what you thought of Beef Dad's performance on this one. Was it better than the last one? Does he deserve an award?
An Oscar.
And we can't go that far. The expenses, it's just the funds they've paid for Alex's holiday. There's a little one.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, and you can also catch us on Facebook, Facebook group, and we're on Twitter at Geeks Assemble. And if you want to be on these casts, please get in touch. Any one of us, leave a message, or you'll find it all over the place. If we've had a few this week. Ask if we could join. Yes, Susan.
If you want to be on these casts, you really ought to have your head examined.
Oh. Yes, and keep taking the medication. So, and on that note, we will say bye for now, and we'll see you next time. So, bye-bye.
For space
policy in school and Space Seed is a 10 out of 10 rating. It's a great episode. One of the most rememberable episodes that they made within the original series. It's one of the best. I love it.